everyone, my name is Marin Guevara. It's been a while since I did a book review / discussion video, but today I'm here to talk about my most recent read, one that I consider to be quite a gem, and that is The Lost Estate by Alain Fournier. This is a work of French literature translated into English. So I've seen this book called The Lost Domain. I've seen it known as The Wanderer. I've seen, I guess, a closer translation to the original French title, The Magnificent Meaulnes. But in French, it's Le Grand Meaulnes. So this one I actually found out, I've heard from another video that this is apparently a beloved book in France, although I never really heard about it, at least here in the States. So I was browsing through my local, not my local, but a Barnes & Noble that I was visiting, and I stumbled upon this book. And you know what? I haven't read a lot of French authors, strangely enough. I know I've been really into Zola, but beyond Zola, not that many French authors or French books I've really read. So I decided to pick this one up, and I was very pleasantly surprised with how much I ended up really enjoying this one. So the story of The Lost Estate follows our main character, Francois. So this is taking place in the late 19th century, like the 1890s. The book starts off with Francois being 15 years old. He is the son of two teachers, and one day his family gets a new boarder, Augustin Meaulnes. And so he ends up staying over there at their house as he's joining Francois in class, and the two of them end up becoming really great friends, best of friends. Now, Meaulnes is very good-looking, he's charming, he's basically, the star of the class. Everyone adores Meaulnes. In fact, the original French title, Le Grand Meaulnes, is coming from the chant that the students have for him. The great Meaulnes, the great Meaulnes. Now, one day, Meaulnes escapes class and disappears for several days. And when he comes back, he tells Francois what happened to him. So he ended up getting lost in the countryside, where he stumbles upon this very grand estate where a very extravagant party was being held. People in costume, there were, horses, there were boat rides. And while he was there, he met this, this young lady. It was pretty much love at first sight. The party eventually ends, and he leaves the estate, and he has no idea where it was or how to get back to it. So basically, him and Francois as well become obsessed with trying to find the lost estate and get back to it. If there's one book that I would liken to this one, I would say L.P. Hartley's The Go-Between. Both deal with themes of, the loss of youth, disillusionment. However, in The Go-Between, you're basically following the events of one major summer, one catastrophic summer that kind of violently, destroys or disillusions this one boy. However, with The Lost Estate, I would say this one focuses more on the slow death of youth. And I feel that sentiment is well represented in this particular passage on these two pages, mainly because of the juxtaposition that it offers. You have the wonder of youth swiftly followed by disillusionment. And so we're following Francois, who is trekking through the woods. And it says here, "For the first time, I too am on the road to adventure. I'm looking for the passage that they write about in books, the one with the entrance that the prince, weary with traveling, cannot find. This is the one you find at the remotest hour of morning, long after you have forgotten that 11 o'clock is coming, or midday. And suddenly, as you part the branches in the dense undergrowth, with that hesitant movement of the hands, held unevenly at face height, you see something like a long dark avenue leading to a tiny circle of light. But while I'm intoxicating myself with these hopes and ideas, I suddenly come out into a kind of clearing, which turns out to be nothing more than a field. Without expecting it, I have reached the end of the Bois du Camano, which I had always imagined to be an infinite distance away. Now on my right, between piles of wood buzzing in the shade, is the keeper's house. In previous years, when we reached the entrance to the wood, we would always say, pointing to a patch of light far away at the end of the immense dark lane, 'Down there is the keeper's house, Baladier's house.' But never did we go that far. Sometimes we would hear people say, as if talking about some extraordinary expedition, 'We went as far as the keeper's house.' This time, I've gone as far as Baladier's house, and found nothing." The way I see it, the older you become, the closer to adulthood that you get, the more time will steal away a lot of the simple joys that you once held close. And it's no wonder that Francois ends up becoming so invested in Meaulnes' quest. I mean, not only because Meaulnes, he adores him, he loves him, they're best friends, but his adventure really does contain, the wonder and imagination that you associate with youth. It has mystery. Where exactly is this estate? Is it necessarily real? Who is the master behind that extravagant, party? It has the potential for romance. I mean, he met a beautiful young lady there and he desperately wants to meet her again and talk with her. It does give off the vibes of, the prince trying to be reunited with a lost princess. And you do get this feeling that for Francois, Meaulnes and subsequently his adventure has become their adventure. And it's become symbolic, in a way, of Francois' own youth. You get this feeling that for Francois, if he could help Meaulnes, go to the estate or find the estate again, be reunited with that young lady, bring him together, then he can be properly reconciled with his vanishing adolescence. He can look back on the past without any bitterness, without any regret. However, as much as this is a book about, the slow death of youth, it's also about the disappointment that comes along with unfulfilled dreams and hopes. I've read a number of French classics in the past. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Émile Zola, Gaston Leroux's The Phantom of the Opera. I've read The Black Tulip by Alexandre Dumas. And oftentimes these stories are going to be filled with, intense drama, punctuated with bouts of violence and passion. But what really stood out to me with The Lost Estate is just how, I guess, more quiet it is. However, that doesn't mean it's any less poignant with what it has to say. Just the way that Fournier, through Francois, describes everything, whether it's the little joys that he has or the sorrow that he feels, it's expressed in such a tender way. So, for example, here we have Francois mourning the loss of his friend and of his past. "Oh, my brother, my friend, oh, wanderer, how certain we were, the two of us, that happiness was close by, and that we only had to start out down the road to find it." And then here on this page, Fournier through Francois is describing this sort of sad, rainy day, but just his language just makes it beautiful. "Anyone who does not wish to be happy has only to go up into the attic, and there, until nightfall, he can listen to the whistling and creaking of foundering ships. Or else he can go outside on the road, and the wind will throw his scarf back against his mouth, like a sudden, warm kiss that will bring tears to his eyes." So just wonderful verbiage like that I really enjoyed reading. As for the tone for the entire book, I did mention that it was quiet. It does, I would say, also lean into the cozy at times as well. And it does have that fairy tale vibe. I mean, consider the premise, the idea of this young man stumbling upon this random estate in the middle of the countryside. He comes across this extravagant party and meets this beautiful lady, and then he leaves and he can't find it anymore. It feels like a child who wants to get back to Neverland or Wonderland, but they can't find the door, they can't find the entrance. Honestly, there was a time when Meaulnes is describing his stay at the estate where I was wondering, wait a second, is this estate real or is this metaphorical? Even Meaulnes at the time is even wondering, like, is it any of this real? When I wake up, is it just going to be gone? So there is that fairy tale feeling to it. I also mentioned that this book does feel cozy at times. And what I mean by that is that there are a lot of moments in this book where Francois is, recounting certain events that may not necessarily have anything to do with the main quest of finding the estate. He's, recounting how maybe him, Meaulnes, and the other children are hanging out at the blacksmith, or maybe they're going through a trek in the woods, or visiting, down by the river. And I don't know, maybe for some readers, they kind of want to get to it. And honestly, like, this is a fairly short book, but I feel like those scenes are important because, once again, this is a book that is meant to, not only capture the feeling of youth, but then the loss of it. And, at least for me, when I look back on my childhood, it wasn't filled with like these huge significant events surrounding this one major, adventure. My childhood was made up of a lot of those lazy days where I was just hanging out with my friends. That's what added to the richness of that time period for me, that period of my life. So I think it adds to the book and what it has to say overall about youth and the loss of it. And I also heard that Fournier was heavily inspired by his own childhood when he wrote this book, so you could definitely see that in The Lost Estate. Overall, this was an absolute gem. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of just fighting back tears towards the end of it, where there were some sad and moving moments. I'm very glad I stumbled upon this at that Barnes & Noble, because if I hadn't, I don't know when or if I was going to pick up The Lost Estate or, Le Grand Meaulnes. I would have loved to read more from Alain Fournier, but I found out that, unfortunately, this is his only book. This was published in 1913, and he ended up dying the next year, 1914, in World War I. So, yeah, if anything I said in this review / discussion interested you, I would definitely recommend picking up The Lost Estate. And if you're a fan of L.P. Hartley's The Go-Between, I would also recommend that you try this one out. I think the two of them are like a good twofer. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope I got you interested in The Lost Estate and trying out Alain Fournier. And if you happen to be a French viewer, please leave down in the comments, what are some classics, some French classics that you don't think a lot of people outside of France, really know about. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!